Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
All right, so I think it was a pretty interesting hand. So it's 2-5 at the Kennel Club in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Okay, so
500 cap.
2-5, 500 cap. Okay.
So we're playing six-handed, obviously because of the coronavirus and everything. Live poker's back, but it is six-handed.
Yep.
So we're about 12-20 effective.
12-20 effective. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just very short background on the villain, I guess. He's a very active and aggro player, but what I've noticed is he doesn't go too thin for value.
Okay.
He generally will like trap his good hands and will barrel off as a bluff frequently.
Okay. So sort of plays it a little bit backwards, which we'll commonly see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. Okay, so it folds all the way around to him, who's in the small blind.
And this is six-handed, right?
Six-handed, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So the small blind raises to $25.
Okay, so small blind raises to 25. So that's a pretty big open, but so it gets folded to the small blind, raises to 25.
Yes, me and him have some history going against each other. He's never folded to a single one of my three bets.
Okay.
So after he opens to 25, I'm in the big blind with Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades.
Okay.
And I three bet to 100.
Again, at 12-20 effective, which is pretty deep, I imagine, for this game, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's pretty deep.
So you three bet to 100. Obviously, I think that's fairly standard, and he calls?
He does.
Okay.
So pot's 200, and then the flop comes out ace of spades, 10 of spades, six of spades.
So ace of spades, 10 of spades, six of spades, all spades. You have Jack of Hearts, Jack of Spades here. So it's a monotone board, which is fairly interesting because, I mean, thing about the big blind here is that, I mean, you would have some suited broadways here and things like that, but I think that people actually might under three bet a fair amount.
Yeah.
Versus the small blind, like they'll call, and then they'll sometimes almost like three bet like a polarized range, like the very top and some bluffs, things like that. So, I wonder how many flushes you have versus, of course, he could have more flushes. Just thinking sort of the theory behind it,
Mm-hmm. I mean, the main flushes that I would probably have is I'm most likely going to three bet him just because of the dynamic, mostly. Like 8-9 suited, king queen suited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to call king jack suited. I don't know if this is like the right ranges, but that's just what happens in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those hands are partials. Like sometimes you can raise them, sometimes you can three bet them, sometimes you can call. But obviously, if somebody else was in the hand, those hands become easy squeezes. So ace 10 6 all spades, pots 200. Okay.
Yep. And then the villain leads out for 215.
Wow. So
yeah.
Small blind bets 215. Okay. So over a pot size bet.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is an interesting one because without the jack of spades in your hand facing an upfront sort of over bet here, I guess you probably, boy, it's really close. Like an over bet. I mean, I think you pretty much call anything up to a pot size, even without a spade, but against an over bet, this seems like a very large protection type of bet. I mean, this is what I would see in my eyes. It's like, wow, this is, there's a possibility he could have flopped two pair. I guess it could be ace X that's trying to protect, but it's certainly not going to be, I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think it's going to be the king of spades, like king queen with the king of spades, and it's certainly not going to be a flop flush. So, I mean, with the jack, basically you most likely have, I would say, as many as say 10 outs, And I think in these situations that you could sometimes see two free cards. So I don't really think there's really anything but for you to call here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I do.
Okay, so hero calls. Yep.
So I call, and the pot's around $630,
Mm-hmm.
and the turn comes a 7 of hearts.
So the turn is the 7 of hearts. Okay.
And then the villain leads out for 195.
So 195 into 630. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point, I'm really just thinking it's possible he has an ace. I have seen him barrel with flush draws before, so I did think that king queen off with like the king of spades might be in his range here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the fact that he's sizing down now just gives me the thought that he's a little bit afraid of something.
Mm-hmm.
So I decide to call and kind of reevaluate everything on the river.
I mean, it's, obviously you're getting a direct price here, right? I mean, the pot's going to be 830. It's 200 for you to call. You're getting 4-1 immediately.
Yeah.
I do really, really discount. I mean, it's either a situation where it's really hard for your hand either not to be best right now, which it probably isn't due to the sizing, or you not to have the premium to the actual best spade draw. And the reason why I say that is if we look at this distribution, right, the only hands that you're behind in terms of high spades, if a spade were to come on the river, would be the king or the queen. And in order for you to be behind now, that's not a flop flush, it would have to be ace king or ace queen. And I just don't know. The whole thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that ace king, ace queen with the queen of spades would go bet pot and then bet 195. I mean, I guess it's possible. Sometimes people might even 4-bet the ace king from out of position from the small blind. So, I think that you have a clear-cut call now. I mean, I guess you could make a case that you might turn your hand into a bluff here by raising on the turn, but I think calling, I think that that's what I would do. I would call here, and it looks like the pot's about 1,020, right?
Yep, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So I call, pot's 1020, and then we go to the river.
Yep.
Which is 4 of clubs.
So the river here is the 4 of clubs. So it's ace of spades, 10 of spades, 6 of spades. Turn is the 7 of hearts. And the river here is the 4 of clubs. Okay, and let me guess what happens. I don't actually know what happens, but anytime, and this is part of the reason why a lot of people, when they don't pick up the common betting patterns from recreational opponents, they don't make the maximum EV plays. And in this case, a good example is that just sheerly based upon the down bet on the turn, I would expect 90% of the time on a non-changing river, non-changing nut river, meaning not a 4 spade or also not another ace coming, because if he has an ace, he might bet. I mean, a lot of people aren't really capable of checking trips to check calls to induce a bluff. I've talked about that before. This is certainly a non-changing river. 90% of the time, you're going to get checked too. Did you get checked too?
I got checked too.
Okay. And the reason why I bring that up is because when people who have like the nuts don't raise the turn, and I'm not even talking about monotone boards, I'm just talking about in any scenarios when someone has like the pure nuts, usually it's the nut flush, and they don't raise the turn, they don't recognize that calling doesn't really accomplish anything because they're not going to be able to raise the river. Like they're going to get checked too. So calling it doesn't do anything. It doesn't get more money in the pot. It doesn't, get more money in before a scare card. Again, this situation is obviously different. I'm just talking about the pattern of bet size here. All right, so he checks to you here.
So when he checks to me, so I said in the beginning of the call, he will barrel off as a bluff frequently. So I don't think that at any point in time is he potting the flop, betting a third on the turn with a 10.
Right. Okay.
Or queens or kings or anything like that. So when he checks to me on the river, I think, okay, he has an ace.
Well, I think he has an ace too. I'm very fearful though that an ace is not going to fold here. I mean, it looks like he's put in 400, right? So he's got what, like 600 left in his stack, probably something like that.
Like a little over 710.
I mean, yeah, I mean the theory here would be if you were gonna bluff, you would polarize all in, and who knows? Like, I mean, this is 5-5. I mean, it's 2-5, so we don't know what competency level your opponent's at in terms of like thinking where. Because what I would be thinking about if I were him, if I had somehow played the hand in this manner, is that I have an ace, and when you jam all in, you're pretty much like representing a set plus, and I block a set of aces. It would be a scary bet at $700, but I think that like I don't think I would put this hand here into this jamming range because I think your hand can be good here some of the times. Yes, you're right. Like it probably it's going to be ace X here a fair amount, but let's say it's ace X here 70-75% of the time, and then 25% of the time you have the best hand. Like he had like king 10 with the king of spades, right? Now he's checking to give up and you check it back and you win. You have to look at the percentage of the time where you actually have the best hand. And then you have to look at the percentage of the time where you actually think you can shove and get him off of a better hand. And look at that. I can get on board with this if you had absolutely nothing. If you had, for example, like king jack with a king of spades, queen jack, you know what I mean? Something like that. And it checked you, and there's literally no way you could win the pot. I mean, king jack, you're not going to be able to win the pot if you've got the king of spades because that means that he's betting with something else. But you see where I'm going with, like, if you just had absolutely no showdown value where you couldn't even beat 10x, I think those are the hands that I would take as a frequency here to try to bluff because I think you're going to be good here some of the time, and I don't know if a jam is going to work. So I tend to play this spot kind of cautiously. If you are going to bluff, it's an all-in for sure. He does seem to have, like, there might be some fold equity where there's at least enough in his stack. Like, if he had 400, 300 or 400, I would never move all in here as a bluff.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I were in your spot, I would tend to check it back for those reasons.
And so that was my intention, was when I called the turn, I figured he was going to check the river.
Yeah.
I just had a feeling about that. And I was most likely just going to check it back. But when he checked it to me, all of a sudden it starts going through my head like, okay, this guy would have just barreled off if he had absolutely nothing. I don't think that I'm good here. And $700 at this 2-5 game is a big bet.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just kind of checking back when I really didn't think that I was going to be good, I guess I didn't even contemplate king 10 with the king of spades.
Mm-hmm.
I went all in.
So V1 checks, hero, all in. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just, and you can't really look to computer modeling for this hand because it's not going to be, I mean, you could attempt to, people are like, what's the GTO solution? It's like, there's not, it's such an outlier to get to this point that it's really hard to plug in valid variables to actually get any type of real answer here in a spot like this. Mm-hmm. For him, again, looking at the theory of it, like supposedly if he has a spade in his hand and he's played ace X this way, maybe that's more of a call than not. But I'm just telling you that if I was in your position, I probably wouldn't make this bluff because I do have the best hand some of the time. And I don't know if it's going to get through, even though it is a fair amount. What happened? Did it get through?
So, yeah, he hemmed and hawed, and he ends up folding, and he shows me the ace of hearts.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, you said, caller, that you were sort of just leveraging the fact that it was a lot of money for this guy. It was six-handed and, 1,200 effective in a 500 cap game and then facing, playing a $2,500 pot. That's a big spot. So you can over bluff sometimes when you feel like someone's going to overfold. I don't know if this was a player dependent thing or what.
It was definitely player dependent.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely player dependent. I wouldn't pull this on most of the people that I play with down here.
But I just want you to get on board with it. Again, understanding with what I'm saying is that like as a selection, you would tend to want to, if you were going to bluff with a certain frequency, besides the composition of your hand, it makes sense to tend to do it with hands where you have absolutely no chance of winning at showdown. Now, that in itself doesn't give you the green light to bluff. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
construe that and they think, "Oh, I don't have any showdown value. I have to bluff here." That is not true. But in a situation like this, I would, if I was gonna bluff, I would take the ones where I didn't have the showdown value and then check back the ones that I did for the reasons I was stating. But thank you for the call. I appreciate it. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.